E ngā mana e ngā reo. E ngā kārangaranga maha. Ke waingani e koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. Nau mai hara mai. I rara o te maru o tēnei whare o te PSA. Nō reira ka anui ngā mihi kia koutou ra. Kia kaha. Koutou ki te hāpai tēnei o tō tātou kaupapa. I ngā hau o tēnei o tō tātou uniona. Te pukainga here tikanga mahi. Te kotahi rau. Tau. Nō reira ka anui ngā mihi kia koutou ra. Tēnā koutou. A hori o ki whakaro ki a rātou mā. E a rātou kua wehe atu ki te pō. Ngā mema teitei. I a rātou mā kua wehe. Haere atu rā koutou. Anei mātou te hunga ora. I konei ki te hāpai tēnei o tō tātou kaupapa. O tēnei o tō tātou uniona. Te pukenga here tikanga mahi. Nō reira ka anui ngā mihi kia koutou. Ka re tōro ki nei mihi. Nā te mea kua tā mā koutou. I te awhi ki te tautoko tēnei kaupapa. I runga i te āhuatanga i pāne ki tēnei o tō tātou mahi. Nō reira ka anui ngā mihi kia koutou. Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou. Tēnā koutou katoa. E toru ngā mea. Ngā me nunui. E ki ana, te pai pera, a ka pono, tu mana ko, o te menui, o te aroha. Nō reira kia tēnā koutou. Te menui e tērā waiata. The three most important things within our lives: hope, faith, and love. Nō reira ka anui ngā mihi kia koutou, aroha nui, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou katoa. Kia ora.
Ina mana, ina reo, ina hau e whā, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I te rangatira ki whare tēnā koe. It's a President Pere Hetai. I've got to get that word. I can't say president. And the president, Mike, thank you very much for your introduction. I was pretty frightened when I was told I was to make this short speech. I wasn't worried about the brevity, but I was worried about the content because I was at the 75th anniversary. And I think it was organised by Sue Piper and the executive of the time, and there was an attempt to broaden the constituency for the celebration, and that included inviting the Governor-General to speak as the guest speaker. That was Sir Paul Reeves at the time, and also to invite a wider range of people from the state sector and the community. And it was what I think we called at the time a group of grumpy old men at the back. And it was Barry Tucker and Jack Batt, and you can probably remind me, Peter, of the rest. But there was a little group, and they were saying, oh, you know, we don't want to have the bloody Governor-General here, and, you know, what are we doing, sucking up to the government? It wasn't like this in my day. And then I found myself in the grounds of Parliament this afternoon, and I looked around, and standing next to me was Peter Harris, David Thorpe. There was another one. Peter, who else was there? Jim Turner, yes. And I thought, oh my God, I've become one of the grumpy old buggers. And not only do they do that, but you know, they look very critically at any of their number that is invited to speak. It wasn't my choice, I say now, to stand here in front of you, and I know too many people in this room to apologise. So you can scrap it out afterwards. But I did, you know, I haven't worked for the PSA as long as some of the people in this room, but I did join the staff in 1977 in Auckland. I did work for the PSA for 16 years, and they were some of the most challenging and rewarding years of my life. I've been a member for 36 years. I'm still a member, although I've been demoted to associate status since I don't work. But I'm very proud of my membership of the PSA, and I will retain it while the automatic payments continue and I move to another dimension. And I'm proud to have worked with a whole range of people here tonight. Most of all, I have to say my apologies to the senior staff, but most of all with the wonderful people who've done all the day-to-day work of administration and organising, membership, PSA holiday homes, all that stuff, field work as it was called once, organising. It's just been so great not only to have worked with those people, but to see the way that they have continued to make contributions, either in the PSA or mostly now elsewhere. Many of them are here tonight representing anything from the SSC to other unions to other organisations. And it was just such a privilege to work with such dedicated people on the staff and with such amazing volunteers who constituted the thousands of delegates, because we used to run about 4,000 delegates at the time that I was there, and if you think, that was several decades ago, just the thousands and thousands of people, who I understand include David Cunliffe, who have given their time as delegates to the PSA, as office holders, in the multitude of formations that there have been, from section committees to occupational groups to executive boards to office holders and so on. I had the privilege of working with a regional secretary, Murray Gittos and Adrian Webster in Auckland, and with Presidents Jim Turner and David Thorpe and Colin Hicks and Sue Piper and Graham Curtis here in Wellington, with General Secretaries Barry Tucker and Colin Clark and David Thorpe again, and then with a team that I fondly remember as, quote, the senior management team, which pretty much for most of my time comprised Colin Clark and Mike Coleman and Peter Harris and Jim Turner and Karen Roper. I know before that I did work with others as well, but that was the team that I worked with most when I came to Wellington after my time in Auckland and Northland. And one of the, if you remember nothing else tonight, let me at least give you a couple of bizarre facts. And bizarre fact number one was, I was sitting in a meeting with them one day and I thought, my God, I'm the only one that doesn't have a trade name. I thought, Colin Clark, clerical worker, Jim Turner, Mike Coleman, we'll know what that means, and Karen Roper. And I thought, that's pretty amazing for a trade union to have a senior management team that picks by that name. I'm the only one that hasn't got one, and I'm probably named after a French blue cheese or a chicken. Anyway, it was a privilege to work with that group over what I think, without any claim to this really, was one of the most, certainly one of the challenging times in the PSA as we moved from what you might call the old public service structure to not only a new public service structure, but the whole winds of change of neoliberalism, and then on top of that, the complete assault on the union movement as a whole. And some have come through that better than others, and I'm just really delighted that the PSA has been one of those that has come through what was really a time of great trouble and tribulation. It wasn't the only time. If you go back and read the history, which I suggest you do rather than me recite it here, there have been many times. But I think the PSA has, in its 100 years of history, had times of growth and development and challenge and being a catalyst for social change. You only have to think about the PSA's position at the time of the McCarthyism era, the Equal Pay Act, and right through that period, right through its history in championing social change. But I don't know how many times we've had our backs to the wall quite as badly as we did in the 80s and 90s. And I think it's a tribute to all those who are still alive at the end of that, that we got through that. But to see the way that we're able to celebrate tonight, not only coming through all those trials and tribulations, and therefore not only the survival of the union, but also the fact that today it is a force both in the union movement and in society. And the one thing that I think characterises the PSA throughout the whole of its history is its championing of a public service. A public service that is independent, that provides free and frank advice, that upholds the values, which somehow seem to have become old-fashioned, of serving the community, of providing a service to government, but for the purpose of serving the people of New Zealand. And I think many of you and many of our predecessors have done that fearlessly, often at a cost to themselves. But the public service has survived. It has undergone many, many transformations. Some of those have been harder than others. But I'm so proud to be here today and to see that young man who was a fresh-looking young research officer, Richard, and Brenda, and Mike and the executive board, leading an organisation that is well positioned to make that contribution and to defend that contribution into the future. So I'm here to pay a tribute, to say hello to, goodness me, however many people I see here that I've worked with over the years, and to thank you all, and to say or maybe just to recall the words of Colin Feslier when we did kind of come through the first State Sector Act, and we were just going to kind of lick our wounds, and he said, why don't we say we actually achieved something? He said, we're so good at snatching defeat from the jaws of victory that we should advertise in the newspapers and say we did it. And we did, and I thought that was a great thing to do. I've only got one other thing to say, which is that when I worked with Colin Clark and Mike Coleman, Karen Roper and Jim Turner, the president was a piper. Thank you.
I just want to start by saying, obviously I don't have the same length of experience in the PSA as a lot of you all do. And I certainly don't have the same length of experience as Joris. And I want to acknowledge the work that you've all done over the years. But what I do have is a microphone and the camera pointed at me. So you're going to have to listen. Firstly, I just want to correct Mike slightly. The PSA Youth is our largest network, but it doesn't have 1,500 members. That's a little bit out of date. We're currently sitting a little bit above 10,500 members.
Okay, my speech writer's file.
So we cover anyone under the age of 35 that sits in the PSA. 35, I know, isn't necessarily youth in a lot of circles, but when it comes to the union movement, we'll take him. So 10,500 people working across the sectors that the PSA covers, and you all know what they are, so I'm not going to go over that. What I do want to say is that what we do a range of things, and it's not just about fighting youth-focused campaigns. It's not just about bringing a youth perspective to campaigns against youth rates, to the ERA changes, to pay parental leave, to pay equity, and all the other fantastic campaigns that we all work on together as the PSA. It's also about trying to bring a youth perspective to the union movement. It's about trying to ensure that our unions are sustainable and are best placed to react to the workplaces of today, because times do change, and we need, in the union movement, to change with them. But that doesn't mean the issues aren't still the same. As my organiser reminded me earlier tonight, from a survey back in his days working in the UK union movement, and the same thing exists here. Whenever you talk to young workers, you say, what are the issues that concern you? What are the issues that you're facing in your job that you want to work together as a union to fix, to improve? Those issues are the same things that older workers face. Their pay, their conditions, their job security. It's all of the same issues. But as youth, we face extra challenges. As youth, we've grown up in a New Zealand where unionism is not the norm, where we don't know that unions are something that even exists often, and even if we know that they exist, young workers often don't know how to join, who to talk to, or where to find out more information. We've grown up in a society in New Zealand where casualised work is the norm, where you don't look at a permanent job with job progression You don't look at a career. You look at a series of fixed-term contracts, casual jobs, and employment agencies. So as young workers, one of the things that PSA needs to do to communicate is to say that there is another way, that together we can work collectively in this union and in other unions if you're in another sector. We can work together to fight against that, to create a system of permanent work, to create a system of job security, and to create pay and conditions that accurately reflect our worth. But we do know that despite these problems, young workers are still joining unions. In fact, like I said, we have 10,500 members in the PSA Youth Network. It's about 20% of the PSA's membership are under the age of 35. And in the sectors that we have the data for, which are the public service sector and the DHBs, we know that young workers are joining at rates that are proportional to their employment in those sectors. So it's not even that young workers are joining less. We're not. We're in the union. It's a question of what we do when we get there. Are we just signing a form when we first start our job and not thinking about it again? Or are we getting active? Are we standing up as delegates? Are we standing up to take on more senior positions in the union movement? And that's something that PSA Youth has helped with and continues to help with. We're hearing time and time again stories from organisers, stories from senior delegates. One of my workmates, he went to a PSA Youth conference, came back, stood for a delegate election the next week. One of my junior delegates, they stood to be on the bargaining team. They're on the bargaining team now. We're hearing these stories, and that's because the Youth Network is helping to build their confidence, and it's helping to build a sustainable future for our union movement. So while we salute all the work that has gone on before, and we could not be here without you, we stand on the shoulders of all that has been achieved in the past. We're working in support of all that is being achieved now, alongside you as your fellow members, your fellow delegates. But with your mentorship, with advice from the lessons learned from the past, we will be ready to step up, and we will be ready to take the lead, not just to work alongside and not just to learn from the past, but to truly take the lead and create another 100 years and another 100 years of the PSA and of public sector unionism. Thank you.
Nō reira kānui ngā mihi kia koutou. Ia koutou rā, o koutou mihi, o koutou kōrero, o tēnei o tō tātou hui ngā po tēnei pō. Nō reira kānui ngā mihi. Personally, I would like to thank you all again in English, if you don't mind, for being here tonight. I have also met up with a few people who, of old, who have come forward and introduced themselves, and it does make you feel old. But in doing so, in meeting all those people, I think it's just wonderful, such a wonderful event that we're here to celebrate 100 years of the Public Service Association. Te pūkenga here tikanga mahi. Nō reira, kia koutou rā, kia kaha, kia maia, kia manawanui. Ka nui ngā mihi kia koutou, i tēnei pō, mō ngā rā i muri a tātou, i wakahaere tēnei o tō tātou union. Nō reira, ka nui ngā mihi, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. I have a waiata. Where's Jax?
Do we have a Jax in the house? Anna?
Hara mai koutou.
Ria.
Hara mai
Thank you.
koutou.
They thought they were going to hide. And anyone else with a good singing voice?
Kia tāta katoa te ata whai o tō tātou ariki a i Ukraini. Me te aroha o te atua, me te whiwhinga tahitanga ki te wairua tapu, ake, amene. Ora, tēnā koutou. Kia ora.